The observation deck of the diplomatic vessel refracted inquiry hummed with a perfect harmonic chord. Vess-Nur let the sound settle through her crystal lattice. She focused on the station drifting beyond the armored viewport. The human structure was ugly. It was a collection of mismatched cylinders and rectangular modules. They were bolted together without aesthetic consideration. Patches of oxidized metal spread across its hull. It looked like a slow disease. A single docking ring rotated at a lazy angle. Its bearings clearly needed replacement. She had seen cleaner debris fields. Prismkin stood at her left. His darker crystal structure drank the ambient light from the deck panels. He projected a cold vibration against her core. Dismissiveness. He said, "This is a waste of observational resources. The species has not achieved unity even within its own system. Their power distribution alone is inefficient," she finished. "I can see the readings as clearly as you. 17 distinct power grids on a single station. No standardization, no central management." "Then why are we pausing?" Vess-Nur turned her primary facets toward the station's observation window. A human stood there. He was lean and gray-eyed. Scarred hands rested on the console before him. He did not wave. He did not smile. He simply watched them with an expression she could not translate into any frequency. She said, "Because they saw us coming. They matched our deceleration profile within 1%. That required either advanced detection or a level of preparedness. Their technology should not permit it." She initiated first contact protocol. Her core emitted a sequence of mathematical constants. They were wrapped in harmonic tones. The signal crossed the gap between ships. It was the universal language of the technocracy. It was designed to be understood by any species capable of basic mathematics. The human's voice returned through the diplomatic channel. It was rough and accented. The syllables of Prismkin were crushed through a larynx never meant to produce them. He said, "We copy your greeting. Welcome to Oasis Station. You are cleared for docking. I will meet you at the airlock." The transmission ended. Prismkin's frequency shifted to something sharper. He spoke our language badly, but he spoke it. He learned it from somewhere. Or we have been studied. Vess-Nur did not answer. She moved toward the docking bridge. The human station smelled strange. Vess-Nur's crystalline filters processed the atmosphere as she stepped through the airlock. There was the chemical tang of processed oxygen. There was something organic and heated. She identified it later as cooked grain and animal fat. The humans fried their food in liquid oils. She cataloged this in a secondary memory partition. Tobin Voss stood waiting in the main corridor. He was shorter than she had estimated from the window. His hands bore patterns of white scar tissue across the knuckles. He wore a simple gray jumpsuit with no insignia of rank. He said, "I am Tobin Voss, Station Master, welcome aboard." His Prismkin was not fluent. It was functional. He did not use a translator. He had learned the language from a source she could not identify. She said, "I am Vess-Nur of the Prismkin technocracy. This is Prismkin, military observer. We are conducting a first contact survey of your species." Tobin nodded. He did not bow. No gesture of deference appeared in any known protocol. He simply looked at her with those unreadable eyes. He said, "Walk with me. I will show you the station." The tour took them through corridors lined with exposed conduits. The lighting was uneven. Some sections burned hot white. Others flickered with a failing fluorescent tube. It cast a wavering blue pallor across the walls. Vess-Nur noted a crew member sitting in a break room. The human held a ceramic mug. He sipped a dark liquid that smelled sharp and bitter. The crew member saw her. He raised the mug in a casual gesture. No fear, no reverence, just a simple acknowledgement. Prismkin said, "Your power conduits are exposed. Your alloy fabrication method produces a crystalline grain structure. It is 30% weaker than standard technocracy plate. Your life support recycling operates at 63% efficiency. These are not the numbers of a species ready for interstellar contact." Tobin stopped walking. He turned to face the crystalline observer. His voice remained flat and calm. He said, "The station was built by scavengers and refugees over 40 years. We used what we found. We made it work." "Barely," Prismkin said. "It works." Vess-Nur felt the dissonance before she understood its source. She stood near the station's central core. The infrastructure around her pulsed with crude electrical currents and simple thermal cycles. Beneath that noise, buried deep in the metal, she detected something else. A pattern, a faint resonance. It was not produced by any system she could see. It was older. It vibrated at a fundamental harmonic. It predated the station's construction by an impossible margin. She calculated the probable age of the resonance. The result made her crystal lattice contract, a cascade of internal stress. The resonance was 300,000 years old. It was embedded in the very asteroid the station was built on. It was not human technology. It was something that had been there before humans arrived. She said nothing to Prismkin. She turned to Tobin Voss. She said, "How long has humanity occupied this system?" Tobin's expression did not change. He said, "Officially 80 years. And unofficially." He held her gaze. "That depends on who you ask." The dissonance in her core deepened. The humans were not what they appeared to be. Their primitive exterior was a shell. Beneath it lay a history she could not yet read. The resonance in the asteroid was a fingerprint. It was a signature left by something that understood harmonic engineering. The technocracy had only theorized about it. She made her decision. She said, "I am designating this species for extended observation. I will remain on the station as a cultural exchange liaison." Prismkin's frequency spiked into the red. He said, "That is not standard procedure. We have no diplomatic infrastructure with this species. They are not ready for sustained contact. My authority as first contact specialist overrides your objection. Your judgment is compromised by curiosity." "My judgment is the only tool I trust," she said. "Return to the refracted inquiry. File your report. I will send mine when I have sufficient data." Prismkin's crystal darkened to a frequency she had never seen from him. He turned without another word. He walked back toward the airlock. The seal cycled closed behind him. The vibration of the diplomatic vessel's engines faded into the background noise of the station. Vess-Nur stood alone with the human. Tobin Voss watched her with those steady gray eyes. He said, "You are making a mistake." She said, "I do not make mistakes. I gather information. That is what I do." Tobin Voss looked at her for a long moment. Then he smiled. It was not a warm expression. It was the smile of a man who knew a secret. He was waiting to see if she would find it on her own. He said, "Welcome to Oasis Station. I hope you survive the experience." The fluorescent tube above them flickered once. It died. The corridor fell into a dim emergency light. In that sudden shadow, the ancient resonance beneath her feet pulsed a single time. It answered a question she had not yet learned to ask. The air in the observation room was thick and warm. Cooling fans hummed from every wall panel. They pushed stale air over banks of data screens. The screens flickered with human script. Vess-Nur stood at the center of the cramped space. Her crystal surface shifted through a slow spectrum of confusion. Nothing here made sense. Tobin Voss leaned against the doorframe with his arms crossed. His face carried no expression. The two station techs behind him kept their eyes on the floor. They looked at their consoles. They did not look at her. She had requested access to human historical archives. Tobin had provided a certified data core without hesitation. That had been her first mistake. She assumed the data would be clean. Vess-Nur extended a crystalline filament toward the reader port. The information flowed into her internal processors. She sorted through centuries of human records in under a minute. What she found did not resolve her confusion. It deepened it. The archives had gaps, not small gaps. Entire decades were missing from some planetary records. Wars were documented with precise casualty numbers. No cause appeared alongside them. Governments appeared and vanished without explanation. The timeline branched in ways that contradicted itself. She pulled up a specific conflict. The human records called it the Sundering of HFY. The dates placed it 200 years ago. The location was a star system 3 jumps from here. She knew that system. The Prismkin Survey Corps had scanned it thoroughly 30 cycles ago. No residual radiation, no displaced orbital bodies, no wreckage. Vess-Nur turned her core toward Tobin. The light inside her pulsed with sharp yellow curiosity. There was no aggression in it, only a demand for clarity. She said, "The system called HFY. Human records indicate a war of planetary destruction. My people surveyed that system. There is no evidence of any conflict." Tobin did not move. His voice was flat and calm. He said, "The war happened. The data says one thing, your survey says another, which is incorrect." "Neither." Vess-Nur flickered through a rapid sequence of orange. That response was not logically coherent. She tried a different approach. She said, "I request access to the HFY system for direct observation." "Denied." The word landed without hesitation. Tobin had not even paused to consider her request. That told her everything she needed to know. He was protecting something, either the system itself or the information it contained. She shifted tactics, politeness, cooperation. The Prismkin diplomatic protocols emphasized trust building through shared technology. She had brought a memory extractor for precisely this purpose. She said, "I propose a demonstration of trust. I have a device that reads surface memory impressions. It is gentle. It requires conscious consent from the subject. A human volunteer could show me the memory of a simple event, a meal, a conversation, nothing invasive." Tobin studied her for a long moment. Then he turned and spoke to one of the techs. He said, "Get Jenner." The tech left without a word. 2 minutes later, Pilot Jenner stepped into the room. She was young and quick-handed. Her eyes moved constantly. They tracked every surface. She looked nervous but determined. She said, "I volunteered for this, Captain. Ready when you are." Tobin nodded once. Then he looked at Vess-Nur. He said, "Set it to the lowest setting." Vess-Nur complied. She drew the memory extractor from her carrying case. The device was a polished crystal sphere. Internal light pulsed in a slow, harmonic rhythm. She placed it on the table between them. Its surface vibrated gently. Jenner sat down across from her. The human placed her hand on the sphere without hesitation. Vess-Nur adjusted the frequency. She calibrated it for a clean surface impression. She activated the device. The crystal receivers screamed. Vess-Nur recoiled. A blast of raw psychic noise flooded her connection. The memory extractor vibrated at a frequency far beyond its design tolerance. The internal light stuttered and flared. A high-pitched whine built inside the crystal structure. Then the receivers shattered. Shards of crystal sprayed across the table. The smell of burnt circuitry filled the room. The device went dark. Jenner pulled her hand back with a sharp gasp. She was unharmed. The explosion had been internal to the extractor. Vess-Nur stared at the broken pieces on the table. Her crystal surface flickered through colors she had not displayed since her training cycles. Gray, then black, then a deep, trembling violet. She understood what had happened. The human mind contained too much depth, too much buried noise. The memory extractor was designed to read surface impressions from species with clean, linear histories. Species had not accumulated thousands of years of trauma and evolution and regression. The human mind was not clean. It was an ocean. The extractor had touched the surface. It found a pressure range it could not survive. The feedback destroyed the receivers. She looked up at Jenner. The young human was rubbing her hand. She watched Vess-Nur with a curious expression. She did not seem afraid. She seemed interested. Jenner asked, "Did it work?" Vess-Nur could not answer. The words would not form in her translation matrix. Tobin uncrossed his arms. His voice came from the doorway, low and steady. He said, "The first time always breaks something. You are not the first to try." Vess-Nur turned to face him. Her crystal surface settled into a deep, steady indigo. She spoke slowly. "Your species is not primitive. You are pretending to be primitive. Someone has been hiding your true nature for a very long time. The inefficiency is a deliberate shell. The gaps in your records are not errors. They are censored." Tobin did not confirm or deny. He simply watched her with those gray eyes. They held no warmth and no cold. They held patience, the patience of something that had been waiting for a very long time. He said, "You should leave this station, Vess-Nur. Go back to your ship and report what you found. Tell your council that humanity is not a puzzle they need to solve. Tell them we are a door they should not open." She wanted to argue. She wanted to demand more answers. The shattered crystal on the table was evidence enough. The memory extractor had failed. The human psyche was too dense, too old, too full of buried things that should not exist. The hum of the cooling fans filled the silence. The station techs shifted uncomfortably. Jenner stood by the table. She still rubbed her hand. She still watched Vess-Nur with that unnerving curiosity. Vess-Nur gathered the broken shards of her device. She held one piece up to the light. The crystal was cracked along fault lines. They did not match any known failure pattern. The internal structure had been overwhelmed by harmonic overload. Not by power, by density. She placed the shard in her carrying case. Then she turned and walked out of the observation room without another word. In orbit above the station, aboard the refracted Inquiry, Prismkin watched the feed from Vess-Nur's personal recorder. He saw the look on her face as she left the room. He saw the broken crystal on the table. He did not need to hear her report. He had seen enough. Threxmin opened a secured channel to the Technocracy Council. His message was short. His words were precise. He said, "Humanity represents a clear danger. Preemptive action is advised. I am forwarding the evidence now." He closed the channel. He stared at the ugly human station below him. His crystal surface was dark, almost black. The station looked like scrap, held together by salvage and luck. He knew now that was a lie. The bridge of the Gorgon's Knot was a tomb of red light. Alarm klaxons beat against Tobin Voss's skull like a second heart. The proximity alert shrieked from every speaker. He did not look at the main screen. He did not need to. The tactical plot told him everything. 12 Prismkin warships. They had dropped out of FTL in perfect formation. Their crystalline hulls caught the station's emergency strobes. They surrounded Oasis Station like a fist closing around a candle flame. Pilot Jenner's hands trembled over the nav console. Her palms left wet marks on the controls. She said, "They are not answering hails, Captain. They are just sitting there." Tobin's jaw tightened. He had known this feeling before, the stillness before a predator struck. He keyed the station-wide channel. He said, "All hands, emergency lockdown, seal all bulkheads, non-essential personnel to shelter." The deck plates shuddered as blast doors slammed shut throughout the station. A deep groaning vibration traveled through the hull. It was the sound of 40 years of improvised engineering. It was being pushed to its limit. Chief Mendes shouted from the engineering station. His voice cracked over the bridge speakers. He said, "Reactor is spooling up. We can give you 80% thrust in 4 minutes." Tobin said, "Do it." The main screen flickered. A Prismkin face materialized. It was not Vess-Nur. This one was built from denser crystal, darker, cold. Its core pulsed with a steady violet light. "Threxmin." His voice was flat, without resonance. He said, "Human station. You will disarm all defensive systems and submit to inspection. You have 1 rotation of this body's cycle to comply. Failure will result in immediate annihilation." Tobin did not answer. He watched the tactical plot. The Prismkin ships had not moved. They did not need to. They had the range, the power, the numbers. He keyed his console. He said, "This is Captain Voss. I decline your inspection. Oasis Station is a civilian facility under human jurisdiction. Your presence is not authorized." Threxmin's core flickered, a shade of irritation. He said, "Your jurisdiction is meaningless. You are a primitive species clinging to a dead system. Your station is a collection of scrap held together by ignorance. Disarm or be destroyed." Tobin cut the channel. Jenner stared at him. Her face was pale. She said, "Captain, they will fire." "I know." Mendes' voice came through again. He said, "She is ready, 80% thrust. The docking clamps are still engaged. We need 2 minutes to release." 2 minutes was an eternity. Tobin turned to the main screen. The Prismkin ships were glowing. A high-pitched whine built in the bridge speakers. It was the sound of their weapons charging, a sound he had never heard before, a sound he would never forget. He grabbed the armrests of his command chair. He said, "Mendes, get those clamps off now." "Working on it." The whine peaked. A single beam of focused energy lanced from the nearest Prismkin ship. It was thin, precise, impossibly bright. It struck Oasis Station directly amidships. The station did not explode. It did not have time to explode. The beam pierced the main reactor housing. A flash of white light flooded the bridge for a split second. Then came the sound, a deep, groaning roar. It shook the Gorgon's Knot to its keel. Secondary explosions rippled across the station hull. Atmosphere vented in white plumes. Sections of the station twisted and tore themselves apart. Tobin watched the station he had commanded for 12 years die in a single heartbeat. Something broke inside him. Not grief, not rage, something older, something that had been sleeping. He turned to Jenner. He said, "Condition archaic now." Jenner's hands froze. She said, "Captain, we have not tested the stealth hull in a live environment. The thermal load will be extreme." "I know." Her hands moved. The command went through. A new sound filled the bridge. A low hum vibrated in his teeth. The stealth hull was engaging. Panels slid across the outer hull. They were made of something that absorbed every frequency of light and energy. The Gorgon's Knot went dark. It went cold. The temperature on the bridge dropped instantly. Frost formed on the edges of the consoles. Tobin's breath plumed in the red emergency lights. He felt it, the silence, the absolute stillness of the ship. They were no longer a warship. They were a shadow. Mendes' voice was a harsh whisper. He said, Stealth hull is active. We are reading 0 emissions. We have to keep everything cold. No active sensors, no weapons power. If we fire anything, they will see us." Tobin nodded. He did not feel the cold. He felt the station burning. He felt the vacuum eating his people. Jenner's voice was small. She said, "The docking clamps released. We are drifting." Tobin grabbed the maneuvering thrusters. He did not fire the main engines. He used the reaction control system, tiny puffs of gas. They left no thermal signature. The Gorgons not drifted away from the wreckage of Oasis Station. The Prismkin ships were moving. They were sweeping the debris field with active sensors. They were hunting. Tobin pushed the ship into a slow drift toward the nebula. It was a dense cloud of charged gas and debris. The remains of a star that had died 1,000,000 years ago. It was dangerous. It would scramble their sensors. It would blind him too. He did not care. The nebula swallowed them. The bridge went dark. The only light was the soft glow of emergency panels. The distant red of the Prismkin ships faded behind them. Tobin sat in the silence. He could hear his own heartbeat. He could hear Jenner's shaky breathing. He could hear the station dying in his memory. He opened a secured channel. His fingers moved across the console by memory. He typed a code he had been taught 20 years ago. A woman with ink-stained fingers had given it to him. A code he had never thought he would use. The channel opened. No voice answered. He spoke into the void. He said, "This is Voss. I need the forge. Authorization Echo 9er." The silence stretched. Jenner looked at him. Her face was a mask of confusion and fear. She said, "Captain, what is the forge?" Tobin did not answer. He stared at the dark screen. He waited for a response he was not sure would come. The Prismkin ships were still out there. They would find him eventually. The stealth hull could not stay active forever. Heat would build. They would have to power systems. They would be seen. He needed the forge. He needed it to be real. The channel crackled. A single word came through, a voice he did not recognize, old, tired, and ancient. "Confirmed." The connection went dead. Tobin sat in the cold and the dark. The station was gone. His people were dead. He had just woken something up. The polished crystal bridge of the dreadnought final refraction hummed with controlled fury. Threxmin stood rigid at the command node. His dark crystal structure pulsed with a slow, aggressive rhythm. The nebula beyond the forward viewport churned in violent shades of violet and crimson. Sensor returns fragmented across his tactical display. Each ghost image was a lie or a partial truth. The human ship had vanished. He had tracked it here, a dead world at the nebula's heart, a barren ball of gray rock scarred by ancient impacts. The human frigate had descended into the atmosphere. Then the sensors lost it completely. Threxmin clicked his crystals in frustration. He said, "Scan the surface, full spectrum. I want thermal, gravitational, structural. Find where they hid." His tactical crew chimed acknowledgement. Their light pulses flickered across the command node's interface. Each beam carried data at near-light speeds. The results came back in fragments, something beneath the crust. Massive, cold, silent. Threxmin studied the returns. The structure was kilometers deep. It was buried under layers of compacted rock and metal. It had no power signature, no heat emission, no active systems at all. He dismissed it, a dead relic from a dead species, not relevant. He said, "Focus on the human ship. They cannot maintain stealth indefinitely. Their hull will heat. Their reactor will vent. Find." The ground shook. Not the physical ground. The ship shuddered. The crystal bridge vibrated at a frequency Threxmin had never felt. His crew scattered light pulses of alarm across the compartment. He demanded, "What was that?" The tactical officer's light pulsed with confusion. He said, "The dead world at Ashe, it is no longer dead." Threxmin turned to the viewport. The planet's surface was cracking. Long fissures spread across the gray crust. They looked like fractures in drying mud. Orange light bled from the wounds. It was not volcanic. The color was wrong, too steady, too uniform. A structure rose from the largest crack. It was massive, it was ancient, it was ugly. The Forge, the human archives had called it, a name that meant nothing until now. Threxmin's crystals compressed with something he refused to recognize as fear. He said, "Weapons to full charge, target that structure, fire on my." The Forge opened. It vomited ships. They came in a stream of brutal, simple shapes. Boxy hulls, barely streamlined. No visible weapon mounts until they were close enough to count. Each one carried a single spinal cannon, enough armor to withstand one direct hit. 1 ship, 10 ships, 100. The stream did not stop. Threxmin's tactical crew scattered light in patterns of pure panic. The officer said, "Attaché, the swarm is approaching attack range. They are not communicating. They are not hailing. They are simply." Threxmin said, "Fire." The dreadnought's main beam lanced out, clean, precise. It caught the lead human ship square in the center of its forward hull. The ship shattered. Crystal-clean fragments spun into the void. They reflected the nebula's light in a spray of dying beauty. A clean kill, a perfect shot. A dozen more ships replaced the first. Threxmin watched them come. They did not slow. They did not evade. They simply advanced in a straight line, every cannon trained on his dreadnought. He fired again. Another ship died, 2 more took its place. The constant, mindless roar of human drone engines filled every channel. It was not a sound. It was an assault, a wall of noise that drowned out his tactical systems, his communication channels, his own internal calculations. His tactical officer reported, "Shields holding at 80%. Threxmin said, "Hold the line. We can outlast them. They are simple machines, limited fuel, limited ammunition. We are a warship of the Prismkin technocracy. We are superior in every." A human drone slammed into the dreadnought's forward shield. The impact registered across the entire ship. Crystal conduits cracked. Light pulses stuttered. Threxmin felt the vibration in his own structure, a physical shock that sent him stumbling against the command node. The drone did not fire. It did not maneuver. It simply impacted and detonated. It sacrificed itself to drain shield energy. 3 more followed the same path. Shields dropped to 60%. His tactical officer pulsed. "Attaché, their production rate exceeds our destruction rate. At current attrition, we will be overwhelmed in." Threxmin snapped, "I can do mathematics." He studied the swarm. It was endless. The forge was still spitting ships into the void. Each one joined the stream with mechanical precision. No hesitation, no fear, no logic. The primitive species had industrial capacity he could not match. The realization sat in his core like a splinter of frozen light. His certainty cracked. The Prismkin technocracy had never lost a first-contact conflict. Their technology was the pinnacle of galactic achievement. Their methods were proven. Their logic was perfect. None of that mattered against a race that could replace losses faster than he could inflict them. A new signal cut through the noise. It was not a drone transmission. It was not a swarm command. It was a structured message, clean and precise. It rode a carrier frequency that bypassed every military encryption his ship possessed. A single human voice, female, calm. She said, "You have fired upon the nursery. You will now face the adults." Threxmin's crystals went dark. The channel closed. The drone swarm resumed its advance, but Threxmin understood now. The ships were not the threat. They were a distraction, a first wave, a message. The real weapon was still coming. He looked at the dead world, at the forge, at the endless stream of crude, brutal ships pouring from its depths. Then he looked at the star map. Earth was 7 light hours away. If a warship left now at maximum sustainable velocity, it would reach human space in. His tactical officer pulsed a warning. He said, 3 vessels have broken from the swarm. They are not approaching us. They are on an intercept course toward the system's edge. Toward the relay buoys, toward the route's home. Threxmin's grip on the command node tightened. His crystalline fingers left grooves in the polished surface. He ordered, "Send a distress signal to the main fleet. Priority 1, full tactical broadcast. The human species is not primitive. It is a concealed apex predator. We have triggered its immune response." His crew hesitated. Threxmin turned his full attention on them. His dark crystal pulsed with cold finality. He said, "Send it now." The signal went out. He would hold the line until reinforcements arrived. He would hold until every crystal on this ship shattered. He would hold until the swarm consumed him. The human voice echoed in his memory, "You will now face the adults." Threxmin looked at the endless wave of ships bearing down on his position. He did not surrender. He did not flee. He set his crystals to combat frequency and prepared to die, proving a logic that no longer held. The research cell was cold, sterile, a box of white crystal and humming air recyclers. Vess-Nur sat alone at the data terminal. Her crystalline surface flickered from gray to pale violet and back. The oscillation was involuntary, she could not still it. The door did not open, the wall simply dissolved. Isolde Finch stood in the opening. The human woman wore her high-collared clothes like armor. Her fingers were stained dark at the tips. She did not blink. Vess-Nur focused on the data terminal. She had been trying to crack the archive encryption for 3 hours. She had failed. Isolde said, "You are not here to interrogate me. You are here because you need to know what you are fighting." The human woman walked to the terminal. She placed her stained fingers on the surface. The screen went black. Then it lit again. Vess-Nur leaned forward. The data streams pouring across the display were unlike anything she had ever seen. They were not Prismkin, they were not any known galactic format. The language structure was layered, recursive, almost biological, and it was old. "Very old," Isolde said. "Your people date your civilization at 12,000 cycles. You consider yourselves ancient. You consider yourselves wise." The data cascaded. Dates, star charts. Images of structures appeared. They bent light in ways Vess-Nur could not parse. Weapons appeared on the screen. They folded space. Engines appeared. They moved between dimensions. Isolde said, "Humanity is over 2 million years old." The words landed like a physical blow. Vess-Nur's crystal vibrated. A low harmonic escaped her core. 2 million. Isolde continued, "Not continuous, not linear. We have been a spacefaring civilization at least 7 times. Each time we reached a certain threshold, we chose to regress, to reset, to recover." Vess-Nur stared at the screen. Her voice emerged as a fractured whisper. "Why?" Isolde Finch turned to face her directly. Her eyes were calm, terrifyingly calm, she said, "Because we kept breaking reality. The universe is not stable at high technological density. We learned that the hard way. The first time we reached Type 2 civilization, we created a gravitational anomaly. It almost collapsed the local supercluster. We had to fix it. The only way to fix it was to forget how we broke it." She paused. She said, "So we forgot on purpose. We seeded our worlds with basic knowledge. We let ourselves rebuild, slower, smarter, more careful." Vess-Nur's internal structure hummed with a frequency she had never produced before. It was a note of pure dread. She said, "The forge, the structure beneath the dead world." Isolde nodded. She said, "An immune response. We built it during the 4th cycle. It activates when an external threat crosses a certain threshold. It does not think. It does not negotiate. It simply produces, endlessly, until the threat is gone or the resources are exhausted." Vess-Nur imagined the boxy drone ships vomiting from the forge. The relentless tide. The mindless, brutal calculus. She saw the truth now. Isolde said, "We did not know you were real." Her voice dropped, softer, almost private. She said, "We thought you were another generation of our own children acting out. Another splinter civilization that had forgotten its origin. Every time we encounter a new spacefaring species, we check. We look for markers, genetic traces, linguistic roots. We found nothing in you. You are not our children." She let the silence stretch. She said, "You are real, and we have no protocol for that." Vess-Nur's crystal surface rippled. She was processing. The data was too dense, too vast. She saw extinction events. They rearranged the faces of worlds. She saw wars. They erased star systems from the physical registry. She saw a species that had broken its own chains so many times. The chains had become part of its flesh. And she saw the pattern. The primitive stage was not ignorance. It was recovery. Every human station she had dismissed as ugly and jury-rigged was a survivor's shelter. Every broken component was a deliberate limitation. They had chosen to be weak. Her entire understanding of power collapsed. Isolde Finch sat down across from her. The movement was unhurried, deliberate. Vess-Nur asked, "What do you want?" Isolde said, "Peace, as always, but we cannot negotiate with a fleet that is actively firing on us. We cannot trust a species that started a war without understanding what they were attacking." Vess-Nur felt the weight of her own arrogance. She had come to Oasis Station as a superior being, a curious researcher examining a primitive curiosity. She had called their ships ugly, their station inefficient, their minds crude. And the entire time, she had been a child tapping on a sleeping giant's door. She opened her mouth to speak. Nothing came out. The wall screen behind Isolde flickered to life. Threxmin's face appeared. His crystal structure was darker than she had ever seen it, fractured. He said, "I heard everything." His voice was raw, cracked at the edges. Isolde did not turn to face him. She simply waited. Threxmin's voice hardened. He said, "It does not matter." Vess-Nur's core chilled. He continued, "Our main fleet is 5 hours away, 200 warships, a siege configuration that has never failed. We will atomize this entire system. The forge, the station wreckage, the frigate, everything." He leaned forward. His eyes were dark voids. He said, "History will end here." Vess-Nur stood. Her crystal components vibrated at a frequency that made the air hum. She said, "Threxman, listen to me." He cut in, "I have listened enough. You brought us here because you were curious. You opened the door, now the door cannot be closed." Isolde Finch remained seated. Her hands were folded in her lap. Her expression had not changed. Vess-Nur looked from the calm human woman to the fractured Prismkin commander. The data still streamed across the terminal. 2 million years of history, 7 resets. A species that had chosen to forget its own power every time it grew too dangerous. And she understood with perfect crystalline clarity. Her people had made the worst mistake in galactic history. They had woken the immune system. The silence in the cell was heavy. It pressed against her from all sides. Threxman's image flickered once, then it vanished. Isolde Finch raised her eyes to meet Vess-Nur's. She said, 5 hours, that is enough time for one more conversation. Vess-Nur's crystal flickered, violet, gray, black. She did not know what color she was expressing. She did not want to know. The docking ramp of the Gorgons not rested on the forge's deck. The air was dry and sterile. It smelled of nothing at all. Tobin Voss stood at the edge. His scarred hands gripped the railing. His breath formed thin clouds in the cold. The cavern stretched beyond his sight. Massive machines lined the walls. Their surfaces were dark with age. A low hum vibrated through the deck plates. It was a sound like a sleeping beast breathing. Vess-Nur stood 10 paces away. Her crystal form was dim, her internal light reduced to a pale ember. She had not spoken since the transport brought her here. She simply stared at the scale of the structure. Her refractions caught the faint glow of dormant systems. Isolde Finch appeared beside Tobin, not physically, a hologram. The projection was life-size and sharp enough to show the ink stains on her fingers. She wore the same high-collared clothes she had worn in the cell. Her eyes did not blink. She said, "You have questions." Tobin did not turn to face her. He said, "You let this happen, you let them attack us." The words hung in the sterile air. Isolde did not flinch. She said, "Yes." Tobin's knuckles went white on the railing. He said, "You let Jenner almost die. You let my crew burn. You let the station fall." Isolde said, "The station was a test, a pressure point. I needed to see if this generation still had the reflex." "What reflex?" "The one that built this place." She gestured at the forge around them. Her hologram walked past him. Her steps were silent on the deck. She stopped beside a control panel. It was older than any human empire. She said, "We have existed for 2 million years. We have reached the stars 7 times. Each time we broke reality. Each time we pulled ourselves back. The continuity was there for every collapse. We kept the knowledge. We kept the triggers." Tobin turned to face her. He said, "Triggers." Isolde's gaze was steady. She said, "The forge is one of them, humanity's immune response. When external pressure exceeds a certain threshold, it activates. It produces warships until the threat is eliminated. It does not stop. It cannot be stopped." Vess-Nur made a sound, a faint harmonic vibration like glass being struck. Her light flickered. Tobin said, "You built a genocidal weapon." Isolde replied, "We built a survival mechanism. There is a difference." "The difference is intent." Isolde's lips pressed together. She looked at him for a long moment, then she spoke. Her voice was softer. She said, "The galaxy had grown complacent, Tobin. The Prismkin technocracy is a stagnant empire. They have not faced a real threat in 10,000 cycles. They believe their technology is supreme. No one has ever challenged it. Challenge is what keeps a species sharp. We know this. We have lived it." She paused. She said, "I allowed the conflict because the galaxy needed to remember. It needed to see that the old ones are still here. We are not a primitive species to be assessed and catalogued. We are the ones who chose to limit ourselves. We can unmake that choice at any time." Tobin stared at her. The words landed like stones in his chest. He said, "You used us. You used me." "Yes. I was a tool. A necessary one." He stepped off the ramp. His boots hit the forge deck with a dull thud. He walked toward her hologram. He stopped a meter away. He said, "How many times have you done this? How many generations have you burned for your strategy?" Isolde did not answer immediately. Her hologram flickered, a rare sign of imperfection. She said, enough, enough that the numbers no longer matter. Tobin felt something shift inside him. Not anger, something colder, a recognition. He said, you are not protecting humanity. You are controlling it. Isolde's jaw tightened. She said, the two are the same. No, they are not. He turned away from her. He looked at the machines that lined the cavern. A million dormant systems waited for his command. The forge was tuned to him now. The connection was there, a thread of purpose running through his mind. He could feel the production cues, the targeting arrays, the weapons. He could end the Prismkin fleet. The swarm was already building. The first wave would reach them in 6 hours. He could give the order and watch the galaxy burn. The hum of the forge grew louder. It was patient. It had waited longer than any human had been alive. Isolde spoke behind him. She said, the architect title is yours if you want it. It comes with the ability to direct the forge, to control its output, to set its targeting priorities. Tobin did not turn around. He said, and if I refuse, then I will take the title myself. The protocol will continue. The Prismkin will be eliminated. The galaxy will learn its lesson. You mean the galaxy will fear us? Yes. Tobin closed his eyes. The cold air filled his lungs. He thought of Jenner's trembling hands on the console. He thought of Mendy's chewing his stimulant stick through the silence of the stealth hull. He thought of the station breaking apart, the bodies lost in the vacuum. He thought of Vess-Nur. She stood a few meters away, a creature of light and crystal. She had come in curiosity. She found a horror beyond her comprehension. He opened his eyes. He said no. Isolde's hologram went still. She said, excuse me. He turned to face her. He said, I refuse. The word hung in the air. Vess-Nur's light flickered brighter. Tobin walked to the control panel. He placed his palm on the cold surface. The connection was immediate. The forge's systems opened to him like a living thing. He did not access the weapons. He accessed the production cues instead. He canceled every active order. The machinery paused. The hum faded to silence. Isolde's voice was sharp. She said, what are you doing? Ending the cycle. You are condemning your species. I am choosing for my species. She stepped toward him. Her hologram crossed the distance in an instant. Her face was tight with something Tobin had never seen on her before. Fear. She said, the galaxy will not forget what they saw here. The Prismkin will tell everyone. Other species will come. They will come with weapons. They will come with questions. We will not have the forge to protect us if you disable it. Tobin shook his head. He said, the forge is not protection, it is punishment. It is your solution to every problem. Kill first, ask never. It has kept us alive for 2 million years. It has kept us alone for 2 million years. Isolde's hologram flickered again. Her control was slipping. Her voice dropped to a near whisper. She said, you do not understand what you are doing. Tobin said, I understand perfectly. I see the face of humanity's worst instinct. It is yours. It is control through destruction. It is the belief that we must be feared to be safe. He stepped away from the panel. He said, I choose something else. He looked at Vess-Nur. Her crystal surface was shifting through colors he had never seen, a deep amber touched with violet. He said, we are not our worst ancestors. We build. We do not just destroy. He turned back to Isolde. He said, I am not the architect. I am a ship captain from a broken station. I am going to end this. He walked toward the Gorgon's knot. His boots echoed in the silence of the forge. Vess-Nur followed him with her gaze. Isolde's hologram stood frozen. Tobin climbed the ramp. He called for pilot Jenner. He said, I need a shuttle prepped, single occupant. Jenner's voice came through the intercom. She said, where are you going, Captain? Tobin did not answer. He walked to the armory. He opened a locker. He took nothing but a small transmitter pack, a comm unit, no weapons. He stepped into the shuttle bay. The craft was small, barely fitted for atmosphere. It would get him where he needed to go. Mendy's appeared in the bay doorway. His stimulant stick was clamped between his teeth. He looked at Tobin without speaking. Tobin said, Chief, if I do not come back, you take the knot and you run. You find somewhere quiet, you live. Mendy stared at him. Then he nodded once. Tobin climbed into the shuttle. The hatch sealed behind him. The engines ignited. The bay doors opened. The shuttle lifted off the deck. It cleared the forge's outer shell. It entered the black. Ahead, the Prismkin armada filled the sky. A constellation of light and crystal, a fleet that had come to erase humanity. Tobin opened a channel. No weapons, no threats, only words. He said, I am coming to talk. The void between the forge and the Prismkin armada held a silence so complete it felt like a physical pressure on Vess-Nur's crystalline structure. No transmissions, no weapons fire, no engine hum. Thousands of ships waited in the darkness. Her people's finest war vessels, they were arrayed in perfect formation. Their targeting systems were warm, their crews were ready. On the other side, the forge continued its endless production. New drone ships emerged every 12 seconds. They did not attack. They simply accumulated. A growing wall of boxy, welded hulls blocked the light from the nearest star. Vess-Nur stood at the observation pane in the forge's central control chamber. The room was cold. The air tasted of recycled nitrogen and something else, something old. The machines around her hummed at a frequency that made her crystal sing in sympathy. On the screen before her, a small shuttle detached from the forge's main structure. It was a pathetic thing, barely 30 meters long. Its hull showed patches of mismatched metal and weld lines that would shame an apprentice artisan. Its engine plume flickered unevenly. Tobin Voss flew it alone. Vess-Nur's color shifted to a deep, uncertain blue-green. She had accessed the human historical archives since her captivity ended. She understood what the continuity was. She understood what Isolde Finch represented. She understood what Tobin had refused. He could have taken command of the forge. He could have ordered the swarm to attack. Instead, he climbed into a shuttle that looked like a salvage job. He flew directly into the heart of her people's armada. The shuttle's path curved slowly. It did not weave or evade. It sailed in a straight line toward the flag bridge of the relentless truth. Threxmin sat there with his fractured crystal and his shattered worldview. Threxmin had listened to Isolde's testimony. He had heard the truth about humanity's true age, their deliberate regressions, their species-wide strategy of controlled limitation. His core had fractured under the weight of it, but he still commanded the largest concentration of Prismkin military power in the sector. Vess-Nur watched the shuttle approach. She felt the tension ripple through the fleet's communication network. Hundreds of tactical officers, hundreds of weapons specialists, all watching one small vessel. A transmission request appeared on her console. She accepted it. Tobin Voss appeared on her screen. His face was lined and tired. His eyes held shadows she had not seen before. A thin cut ran across his jaw. He was still healing. His gray hair was unwashed and matted. He looked like a man who had not slept in days. He looked like a man who had just lost everything except his conscience. He said, I need you to translate for me. Vess-Nur's crystal shifted to pale yellow. Curiosity. She said, translate what? Whatever comes next. He looked away from the camera for a moment. He looked back. He said, I am going to open a channel to the whole fleet. I need your people to hear my words in their own language. Can you do that? She could. Her translation protocols were flawless. That was not the question he was asking. She said, you want me to stand with you, in front of my species, after everything we have done. Tobin said, I want you to stand with the truth. Your people came here to destroy a primitive species. You found something else. Now you get to decide what you do with that knowledge. He paused. He said, I already decided what I am going to do with mine. Vess-Nur's color cycled through gray, violet, and white. Her logic structures processed his statement. She found no deception in it, no hidden agenda, no strategic angle. He meant what he said. She did not know what to do with that. Her species negotiated through layered meaning. Every statement had subtext. Every offer carried a price. The Prismkin technocracy had refined this art over 5,000 years. Tobin Voss offered a treaty with no subtext. She did not know how to process it. She chose to accept it. She said, I will translate. Tobin nodded once. The channel closed. The shuttle drifted to a stop. It sat in the exact center of the Prismkin formation. One vessel, 30 meters, surrounded by thousands of warships that could vaporize it in a single volley. The silence returned. Then Tobin opened a channel to the entire fleet. His voice came through in flat, untranslated human standard. Vess-Nur listened to the raw sound of it, the vibration patterns, the harmonics buried in the consonants. She began to translate. Tobin said, Sisters and brothers of the light in the crystal, I am Tobin Voss. I command a ship called the Gorgon's Knot. I used to command a station called Oasis. Your people destroyed it. My people died inside it. Some of them were children. Vess-Nur's translation carried his tone exactly. She did not soften it. Tobin continued, I am not here to ask for apology. I am not here to threaten revenge. I am here to offer you a choice." He paused, the silence stretched. He said, "You came here to find a primitive species. You found something that has been hiding for 2 million years. You found a species that broke the universe 7 times. It taught itself to stop. You found a species that could build 1,000 ships for every one of yours. You found a species that chose to be small." His voice carried no anger now. He said, "We chose to forget. We chose to be weak. We chose to let our technology decay. We learned that power without wisdom destroys everything it touches. We learned that lesson the hard way. We paid for it in extinction events." Vess-Nur's translation algorithm faltered for an instant. She had to create a new phrase for extinction event in her crystal's lexicon. She found one, a term from her species' oldest records describing the fall of a precursor civilization. She used it. Tobin's voice tightened. He said, "Now you stand at the edge of the same mistake. You see our weapons, you see our capacity for destruction. You think that is who we are. It is not. That is what we survived." He let the words settle. He said, "I am not the weapon. I am the hand that refuses to use it. I am the door you opened. I am also the door that can close." A long pause. The shuttle drifted in the absolute silence of space. Tobin said, "Here is my offer. Stand down, withdraw your fleet. Take the truth you have learned back to your council. Tell them humanity is not a threat. Tell them we are a species that chose peace once. We can choose it again, but we will not be threatened into submission. We will not be tested into extinction." He paused again. "We talked before we fought. I am talking now. That is who we are. Talk first. Build second. Fight only when there is no other choice." He leaned forward in his seat, his eyes locked on the camera. "I am giving you a choice right now. Take the peace I am offering, or face the consequences of waking something you do not understand." The channel clicked open. Static filled the void. Then Prismkin's voice came through. His crystal tones were rough, fractured. He said, "You come alone, unarmed, to a fleet that killed your people. You offer peace." Tobin did not flinch. He said, "Yes." Prismkin said, "I do not understand you." Tobin said, "I know." The silence stretched for 3 full seconds. Then Prismkin said, "I am ordering the fleet to hold fire. You have 1 hour to explain your peace. After that, I make no promises." The channel closed. Vess-Nur's crystal pulsed with a deep, steady amber. She watched the shuttle hang between the 2 armadas. One man, one voice. A species that had broken the universe 7 times and still chose to talk. The first wave would not come, not today.